Investors often raise this question of when to rebalance their asset allocation. For example, today equity markets are peaking. So, what should you do as an investor? Should you allocate more towards equity or less? Join us this Saturday where we talk about what the right asset allocation is and what you as an investor should do now.
Time to introspect. There are different phases which we experience in the markets. There are phases when you feel very confident about the future, when you see valuations completely in your favor, when you can, as they say, thump the table. Times when you have more ideas and very little money to buy. Times when you feel very convinced to make significant, sizable bets in companies. But are we in such times? The answer is clearly not. When I speak to peers, and more importantly people whom I respect a lot for their experience and wisdom, I find that most people are out of ideas. Most of us have some ideas, but we don't feel we have enough ideas. So essentially, we have more money to deploy and less ideas. That seems to be the general trend. Even people who don't have money to deploy feel a distinct paucity of attractive ideas, compelling ideas. So that feeling is giving many people, experienced and new, a sense of fear. And that fear is that it's probably only they who don't have ideas and others should be having something which they must kind of find out more about. So that is again a fear of missing out, or FOMO. That is very, very visible in people whom you respect. I can understand somebody who is new to the market having that feeling, but those who have seen it all have that feeling. That is something which I find quite surprising. I have not seen it in past cycles. I would essentially attribute it to the dominating effect of social media on our psyche. We are always seeing a few people whom we would otherwise miss even noticing, swimming naked in high tide, but we are not seeing that they are naked. So we think that they are probably having a ball of a time out there. And that feeling is probably creating this sense of, missing out. But these phases are not going to be as long as we fear, that's for sure. These phases are likely to be changing or turning. And they would also be short-lived exactly when we feel that they would sustain. So these are times when you should find something better to do, and I would want to talk about that in this video. The first thing is, when you don't have ideas, you introspect what worked for you in the past. You introspect everything you did right and wrong. Try to find out something in what you did wrong earlier which you can do right now, because sometimes your past mistakes give you some fantastic lessons, and those lessons can actually be rectified in the present. If you have something like that, then that would be a great outcome from introspection. Many times, some stocks which we liked but in past cycles missed out because of our stubbornness on either valuation or some other narrower reasons would have kept us out of such ideas. But now if you find the same ideas and you can see them more clearly and they are looking as contrarian and convincing, then you can pursue them. But to even get where they are, you need a lot of introspection. And such introspection should be done with openness and honesty so that we find purpose in what we do. That's something that every one of us has to now focus upon. Personally, I feel that these are times when we study businesses which we normally like, which are not at the valuation that we would like to invest into. We should also know what is the right valuation for such companies and constantly update the desirable valuation at which we would invest very happily. So that updation is something that will give us a lot of investment pipeline strength. Our investment pipeline would become much better. We would be able to have more ideas, and essentially that sense of insecurity would start coming down. So we need to work but not act. So the working will keep us busy. We'd be able to study a lot of companies peacefully. We would be thinking within ourselves, not necessarily going out and telling people what to do. And that introspection will give us a lot of inner strength. So I think that this is a time to study more businesses, collaborate with people to understand businesses which we don't agree with on valuation but like with on principle. So that is what I think will be the best thing to do now. There's one thing we must not do now, which is externalize instead of internalizing. Instead of introspecting, we'll be looking at what others are doing. That is something to be avoided now, because that would stop us from thinking on our way forward and get distracted on what others are doing. It's like you're going to a particular destination on a street, you suddenly see some incident on the street, you stop doing what you need to do and get into that incident. So you start going there, seeing what is happening, you stand around, you don't move. So that static position is something we should avoid. So we should be flowing with our thoughts in a certain direction in which we become more productive, but not necessarily investment action oriented. We should just work without the pressure of investment actions. Because when these ideas come to an investment zone where we like them a lot, then we could call ourselves quickly into investment action. A lot of people who get distracted by what others are doing tend to be unprepared or underprepared when it is a time for them to quickly act. That will not happen if we use these kind of times productively. So it's a time to introspect, to look inward, to study what we already believe in, to know the kind of businesses we would like to own in the future, to set the benchmarks of valuation for each of those businesses we study, and to lie in wait. That way, we would be safe zoned in our own thought process, in our own investment requirement, and in our own future needs. That's something which we should do now. Thank you for watching this video.